What if I told you that the very thing you crave the most might be the reason you're losing yourself? It starts small, just a glance, a desire, an image that lingers longer than it should. But before you know it, that spark becomes a wildfire, burning down your values, your clarity, and eventually your identity. Lust doesn't knock at the door. It slips in quietly and makes you believe it's harmless. But it has a dark agenda to replace what you once stood for with illusions that never loved you back. Let's be honest. How many times have you chased something or someone only to realize later you never really wanted them? You just wanted the feeling, the rush, the validation, the escape. And in that moment, without even realizing it, you built an idol, shiny, empty, and false. You see, lust doesn't just distort love. It distorts you. It rewires your brain to obsess over pleasure while ignoring purpose. It makes you worship appearances, not essence. And in that process, you forget who you were before the craving took control. But here's where it gets interesting. By the end of this video, you won't just understand how lust creates false idols. You'll know exactly how to spot them, break free, and reclaim your inner power before it's too late. And somewhere in this journey, you might just realize that the thing you were chasing, it was never, but the lesson it came to teach you, that might change your life forever. Stick around, because what you discover next might just be the most honest thing you've heard in a long time. It's easy to confuse desire with lust. They both burn, both pull you toward something or someone. But while desire can guide you toward purpose, lust often drags you into chaos. So what is lust really? It's not love. It's not admiration. Lust is that overpowering craving that doesn't care about connection, doesn't wait for depth, and definitely doesn't ask for permission. It's the urge that whispers, "I want it now," and shuts out every voice of reason. It's a hunger that isn't satisfied with presence. It wants possession, not to understand someone, but to consume. You feel it when the mind fixates on an image, a body, an idea of perfection, often exaggerated and unrealistic. It's short-term, it's surface level, but it disguises itself as something profound, and that's where the trap begins. Now here's the twist. Desire itself isn't the enemy. In fact, desire is one of the most powerful forces we have. It drives creativity, ambition, even love. A healthy desire respects boundaries. It's rooted in reality. It seeks connection and growth. It wants something, yes, but it doesn't need it at the cost of your values or peace of mind. Lust doesn't play by those rules. It hijacks your thoughts, overrides your self-control, and convinces you that satisfaction is the ultimate goal, even if it means betrayal, addiction, or emptiness. It's obsessive, compulsive, and often leads to guilt rather than fulfillment. Think of it like this. Desire says, "I'd love to share something beautiful with you." Lust says, "I need you to fill the void inside me, no matter what it costs." One leads to connection, the other leads to control. The danger lies in how quietly lust can disguise itself as passion. One moment you're attracted to someone, the next you're idolizing them, placing them on a pedestal they never asked for, and in doing so you lose sight of their humanity and your own. Understanding this difference isn't just about controlling your urges, it's about protecting your power. Because when you can tell real desire from destructive craving, you stop falling for illusions, you stop building false idols out of fleeting fantasy, and most importantly, you stay rooted in who you truly are. It's wild how something as invisible as a feeling can suddenly take the steering wheel of your life, and lust does exactly that. You could be the most disciplined, logical person in the room, and still one powerful trigger, one overwhelming moment, can send your reasoning straight out the window. That's the intensity of lust. It doesn't ask, it grabs. And once it takes over, your mind doesn't think in long-term consequences. It only sees one thing: gratification. Let's break this down deeper. Lust isn't just some random emotion. It's a biologically wired survival mechanism, an ancient part of our brain that evolved to push us toward reproduction. When you feel lust, your brain floods with dopamine, the pleasure chemical. That's why it feels so good, so urgent, so addictive. The same circuit that lights up the food, drugs, or even gambling, lights up during moments of intense lust. But here's the problem. Your brain's reward system doesn't know the difference between real intimacy and empty stimulation. It just knows this feels good. Let's chase. That's why logic often disappears during lustful moments. The prefrontal cortex, The part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and self-control gets overridden. You're not thinking. You're reacting. Psychologically, lust preys on your unmet needs, loneliness, insecurity, boredom. They all become fuel. Lust offers an escape, a rush, a fantasy that feels better than reality. It promises you power, attention, connection, but usually delivers regret. And yet, because the brain remembers the high, it keeps going back for more. That's why people often make choices they know are wrong. Affairs, addictions, betrayals, not because they're evil, but because lust short-circuits their inner compass. It tells you, this is the exception, you deserve this. Just once, but that once becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a chain. This isn't about shaming the emotion, it's about understanding its control. Because when you recognize how lust manipulates your biology and psychology, you stop blaming yourself for feeling it, and start learning how to master it. You begin to see it as a wave, not something to drown in, but something to ride through with awareness. And once you regain that awareness, you take your power back from an emotion that was never meant to lead you. It was meant to test you. You don't need to bow down to a statue to be worshipping something. False idols are everywhere, and most of the time they're hiding in plain sight. They don't come with warning signs or flashing red lights. They come wrapped in charm, status, beauty, and influence. The scariest part, you often don't even realize you're worshipping them until they've already taken the throne inside your mind. Think about it. How many people chase fame, not because they have something meaningful to share, but because they want to be seen, applauded, adored? How many sacrifice their peace, time, and integrity for money, not because they need it to survive, but because their identity is tied to the number in their bank account? And how many lose themselves trying to look perfect on social media, curating a life that looks beautiful, that feels hollow? These are the new false idols. Fame, money, beauty, popularity, even certain people. You can idolize a partner, a celebrity, a lifestyle, or even your own image. When something starts to define your worth, control your choices, and cloud your judgment, it becomes an idol. And the tragedy is that these idols don't love you back. They don't care about your growth. They only demand your attention, your energy, your soul. At first they seem harmless, a little admiration, a little ambition. But over time they grow root. They begin to replace your higher values, your honesty, your discipline, your purpose. You start justifying anything to keep them in your life, even if it costs you your peace. And that's the most dangerous part, when you stop living with intention and start living for validation. This isn't about avoiding ambition or desire. It's about making sure they don't become your God. Because the moment something external defines your internal world, you've handed over control. You weren't meant to chase illusions. You were meant to build something real. And when you finally strip away the glitter, the noise, the filters, you'll see it clearly. The only thing worth worshipping is the truth that brings you closer to your highest self, not further from it. One of the most dangerous things lust does is fool you into thinking you're chasing love, when in reality you're chasing a fantasy. It doesn't take much. A single look, a perfectly edited photo, a charming smile, and suddenly you're hooked. Your thoughts orbit around them. Your time revolves around them. And your worth starts depending on their attention. Not because of who they are, but because of how they make you feel. That's how quickly lust turns a human being into a false idol. You're no longer seeing the person, you're seeing a projection, a symbol of desire, an idea of happiness. And that's where growth takes a back seat. Instead of building yourself, you're busy obsessing over someone else. Instead of working toward your purpose, you're trying to impress someone who may not even know the real you. It becomes less about connection and more about control. You want to have them, be near them, be noticed by them, not because of their values or depth, but because of what their presence satisfies within you, that hollow space that lust pretends to fill. Gratification becomes the goal, not peace, not understanding, just that rush, that hit, that dopamine spike that makes you feel alive for a moment, but always leaves you emptier than before. This is where the connection gets dangerous. Lust doesn't just blind you, it replaces your priorities. You stop asking, what kind of person do I want to become? And start asking, what do I need to be for them to want me? That's how you build an idol out of skin and charm. That's how you start worshipping what was never meant to lead you. It's subtle. That's what makes it so powerful. But when you become aware of it, you start to see the difference. You stop chasing the illusion of closeness and start seeking real, meaningful connection. You start asking better questions. Is this about love or just attention? Is this helping me grow or making me forget who I am? Because once you see how lust can redirect your entire life toward hollow worship, you begin to pull your focus back toward purpose, toward clarity, and most importantly, toward yourself. History doesn't just repeat itself, it warns us. And some of its loudest warnings come from the stories we think we already know. Take Samson, for example, a man blessed with supernatural strength, feared by enemies, chosen for greatness, but all of that unraveled at the hands of one woman, Delilah. Not because she fought him in battle, but because she seduced his mind. Samson, blinded by lust, revealed the secret to his strength, and in doing so lost everything: his power, his purpose, his freedom. The lesson: even the strongest fall when they worship desire more than destiny. Then there's Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships. Her beauty sparked one of the most legendary wars in Greek mythology. But beyond the romance and the poetry lies a darker truth. Kings, heroes, and entire nations sacrificed peace for the illusion of possession. Helen didn't cast spells. She didn't raise armies. Lust did that. It distorted love into obsession, and obsession into destruction. The war wasn't really about Helen. It was about the ego, pride, and desire she became a symbol of. Fast forward to today and not much has changed. We see it in the way people treat celebrities, placing them on godlike pedestals, following their every move, mimicking their choices without question, not because of who they truly are, but because of what they represent: perfection, desire, fantasy. Bollywood and Hollywood are filled with figures who've become modern-day idols, not for their wisdom but for their looks, not for their truth, but for their image. It's easy to judge ancient myths, but how different are we really? We may not fight wars over a woman today, but we ruin relationships over lust. We may not tell our secrets to a Delilah, but we share our vulnerabilities with people who don't value us, just to feel desired. These stories survive for a reason. They aren't just entertainment, they're mirrors. They reflect our flaws, our patterns, our blind spots. And if we're wise enough to look closely, we'll realize they aren't about the past at all. They're about us, right now, still facing the same temptations, still writing our own myths, one choice at a time. If this video has made you pause, made you reflect, then it's time to take the next step. Lust isn't just a battle of willpower, it's a spiritual war. And if you're tired of the cycle: temptation, guilt, shame, repeat, then you need real weapons to fight back. That's why I created a powerful ebook, 7 Biblical Secrets to Destroy Lust. These aren't vague motivational quotes. These are time-tested, scripture-backed principles that have helped thousands of people win the war against lust, silently, daily, and permanently. This isn't about suppression, it's about transformation. Inside this ebook, you'll uncover the hidden strategies used by biblical warriors to guard their minds, purify their hearts, and walk in strength every single day. If you're serious about reclaiming your focus, rebuilding your spiritual strength, and finally experiencing peace instead of constant internal struggle, this ebook is your foundation. The link to grab your copy is right now in the description below, and also in the pinned comment. Don't just scroll to the next video, invest in your freedom. One decision today could break chains you've carried for years. Click the link, get your copy, and begin your journey to real victory. Your breakthrough starts now. We live in a world where fantasy is just one tap away, and that's exactly the problem. Never before has lust been so accessible, so normalized, and so cleverly disguised as a tenant. With adult content just a click away, millions are falling into silent addiction. It doesn't feel dangerous at first. It feels like stress relief, escape, even pleasure. But over time, it rewires the brain. The more you watch, the less real people seem satisfying. Emotional connection fades, physical presence becomes dull, love becomes performance, and intimacy, it gets replaced by illusion. This isn't just about morality, it's about your mind. Studies now show that repeated exposure to adult content can kill motivation, damage relationships, and even distort what you expect from your partner. You begin comparing real-life love with fake, scripted scenarios, and in doing so, you set impossible standards no one can meet, including yourself. But it doesn't stop there. Social media has become a showroom of idealized love. Scroll long enough, and you'll find influencers who seem perfect: flawless skin, perfect bodies, luxurious lifestyles. But here's the catch. Most are followed not for their wisdom or authenticity, but simply for their appearance. They become modern-day idols, built on filters, lighting, and curated lies. And unknowingly, people start measuring their worth against them. Why don't I look like that? Why doesn't my life feel that good? You begin chasing aesthetics instead of value. External validation becomes more important than inner growth. You start craving the attention they get, without questioning what it's costing them, or you. These are the idols of today. Not golden statues, but blue check accounts. Not temples, but timeline. And they're stealing your attention minute by minute, scroll by scroll, distracting you from real connection, purpose, and peace. The scary part, this all feels normal. It's become part of daily life. But just because something is common doesn't mean it's healthy. The good news, you can break free. You can stop worshipping what's empty and start building something real. Relationships rooted in truth, a mind free from addictive patterns, and a life driven by purpose. But first, you have to be brave enough to see the lie and strong enough to walk away from it. It always starts with excitement, the thrill, the chase, the fantasy. But what begins as attraction quickly spirals into attachment. And when you build your life around lust-driven idols, the crash isn't just painful, it's soul-crushing. One of the first things to fall apart is your relationships. When lust is at the center, love becomes transactional. People aren't seen for who they are, but for what they can offer. Attention, beauty, validation. You start expecting perfection and get frustrated by reality. Communication weakens. Trust erodes. And when the fantasy fades, so does the interest. Countless relationships collapse not because they lacked love, but because they were built on lust disguised as connection. But the damage runs deeper than breakup. These aren't vague motivational quotes. These are time-tested, scripture-backed principles that have helped thousands of people win the war against lust, silently, daily, and permanently. This isn't about suppression, it's about transformation. Inside this ebook, you'll uncover the hidden strategies used by biblical warriors to guard their minds, purify their hearts, and walk in strength every single day. If you're serious about reclaiming your focus, rebuilding your spiritual strength, and finally experiencing peace instead of constant internal struggle, this ebook is your foundation. The link to grab your copy is right now in the description below, and also in the pinned comment. Don't just scroll to the next video, invest in your freedom. One decision today could break chains you've carried for years. Click the link, get your copy, and begin your journey to real victory. Your breakthrough starts now. We live in a world where fantasy is just one tap away, and that's exactly the problem. Never before has lust been so accessible, so normalized, and so cleverly disguised as a tenant. With adult content just a click away, millions are falling into silent addiction. It doesn't feel dangerous at first. It feels like stress relief, escape, even pleasure. But over time, it rewires the brain. The more you watch, the less real people seem satisfying. Emotional connection fades, physical presence becomes dull, love becomes performance, and intimacy, it gets replaced by illusion. This isn't just about morality, it's about your mind. Studies now show that repeated exposure to adult content can kill motivation, damage relationships, and even distort what you expect from your partner. You begin comparing real-life love with fake, scripted scenarios, and in doing so, you set impossible standards no one can meet, including yourself. But it doesn't stop there. Social media has become a showroom of idealized love. Scroll long enough, and you'll find influencers who seem perfect, flawless skin, perfect bodies, luxurious lifestyles. But here's the catch. Most are followed not for their wisdom or authenticity, but simply for their appearance. They become modern-day idols, built on filters, lighting, and curated lies. And unknowingly, people start measuring their worth against them. Why don't I look like that? Why doesn't my life feel that good? You begin chasing aesthetics instead of value. External validation becomes more important than inner growth. You start craving the attention they get, without questioning what it's costing them, or you. These are the idols of today. Not golden statues, but blue check accounts. Not temples, but timeline. And they're stealing your attention minute by minute, scroll by scroll, distracting you from real connection, purpose, and peace. The scary part, this all feels normal. It's become part of daily life. But just because something is common doesn't mean it's healthy. The good news, you can break free. You can stop worshipping what's empty and start building something real. relationships rooted in truth, a mind free from addictive patterns, and a life driven by purpose. But first, you have to be brave enough to see the lie, and strong enough to walk away from it. It always starts with excitement, the thrill, the chase, the fantasy. But what begins as attraction quickly spirals into attachment. And when you build your life around lust-driven idols, the crash isn't just painful, it's soul-crushing. One of the first things to fall apart is your relationships. When lust is at the center, love becomes transactional. People aren't seen for who they are, but for what they can offer. Attention, beauty, validation. You start expecting perfection and get frustrated by reality. Communication weakens, trust erodes, and when the fantasy fades, so does the interest. Countless relationships collapse not because they lacked love, but because they were built on lust disguised as connection. But the damage runs deeper than breakup. Over time, you begin to lose yourself. When your thoughts constantly revolve around someone else's appearance, approval, or attention, your own goals fade into the background. You forget who you were before the obsession began. Dreams shrink. Purpose fades. You begin to shape yourself into someone else's ideal, losing touch with your own values, passions, and voice. Slowly, your identity is no longer yours. It belongs to the idol you created. And then comes the burnout, chasing external highs, whether through lust, attention, or false fantasies, is exhausting. The dopamine hits stop working. The content you once craved now feels empty. You're always scrolling, always searching, but never satisfied. Emotionally, you're drained. Spiritually, you're hollow. You start wondering, why do I feel so disconnected, even though you're constantly surrounded by stimulation? That's the silent price of following lust. It promises you pleasure, but charges you your peace. It doesn't just take your time, it takes your energy, your clarity, your ability to love deeply and live fully. You stop being present. You start living in fantasy. And when the illusion finally breaks, you're left with regret, confusion, and a hunger that nothing external can fill. But awareness is the first step to healing. When you recognize the cost of these idols, you can start dismantling them, piece by piece. And once they fall, something beautiful begins to rise in their place, your wholeness. Because nothing is more powerful than a person who chooses truth over temptation and builds their life from within, not from fantasy. You don't stumble into freedom, you walk there, step by step with intention. The first step is awareness. Most people don't realize they're being misled until the damage is done. That's why it's crucial to understand your own desires. Ask yourself, where is this coming from? Is this desire rooted in emptiness or purpose? Are you looking to connect or just to escape something you're avoiding? The more you understand what drives you, the easier it becomes to spot the traps set by lust. Self-honesty is your first shield, but awareness isn't enough. You have to replace what's misleading you. Lust isn't just a problem, it's a placeholder for something deeper you're craving. Maybe it's connection, validation, affection, or clarity. But lust won't give you those things. It only imitates them. Start choosing love instead of lust. Love requires patience, presence, and respect. It's not in a rush. Respect sees beyond the surface. Purpose, on the other hand, keeps you grounded. When your life has direction, distractions lose their grip. You're no longer chasing stimulation. You're building something meaningful. Another powerful shift. Stop idolizing people and start following principles. People can fail, fall, or fool you. Principles don't. Integrity, discipline, truth, loyalty. These are anchors that keep you steady when emotions try to take over. When you let people become your moral compass, you give them too much power. But when you live by timeless values, you gain clarity, even when the world gets noisy. And let's be honest, the world is loud. Everywhere you look, you're being pulled toward desire, distraction, and comparison. The only way to stay centered is to live consciously. That means cutting off toxic content, setting real boundaries, learning to say no, not just to others, but to the part of yourself that craves instant pleasure over lasting peace. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aligned with what's real, aligned with who you truly are beneath all the noise. The more aligned you become, the harder it is to be manipulated. You stop chasing idols and start becoming someone worth following. And that's the goal, not to escape lust temporarily, but to outgrow it completely, to rise above it, led not by craving, but by call. Admiration isn't the problem, It's what and who we admire that makes all the difference. In a culture obsessed with image, it's easy to idolize appearances, perfect skin, ideal body, expensive clothes, a curated lifestyle. All of it looks inspiring, but often it's just a performance. And when you let those visuals shape your goals, you're no longer chasing growth. You're chasing illusions. You end up valuing surface over substance, popularity over purpose, and charm over character. But what if we flip the script? Instead of being mesmerized by how someone looks, start paying attention to how they live. What values do they stand for? How do they treat others when no one's watching? What do they do when it's hard? Not just when the spotlight is on them. That's where true inspiration lives, in quiet discipline, in kindness, in consistency. These aren't things you see on a highlight reel, but they build a life worth following. Real role models don't just entertain you, they elevate you. They don't tempt you into imitation, they challenge you to become your best self. These are the people who remind you of your strength, not your lack. They help you grow, not compare. They inspire action, not addiction. Start being selective with who you allow to influence your thoughts. If someone's presence makes you feel not enough, they're not your guide, they're your distraction. But if someone's words or work spark something in you, an idea, a fire, a direction, they're worth keeping around. That's the kind of energy that feeds your soul. This shift in mindset changes everything. You begin to surround yourself with substance, not spectacle. You look for meaning in places others overlook. You start becoming a reflection of the values you admire, not the appearances you envy. And that's when true transformation begins. Not when you chase someone else's life, but when you build your own from truth, purpose, and self-respect. It's not about never admiring anyone again. It's about choosing who and why. Because the goal isn't to worship others, it's to become someone who inspires. The truth is, lust isn't just a private battle, it's a silent thief. It doesn't just take your attention for a moment, it steals your clarity, your relationships, your peace, and sometimes even your purpose. And the worst part, most people don't even realize they're in bondage until they've already lost something valuable: time, trust, self-worth. But you don't have to keep living in that cycle. You don't have to keep falling for empty idols, fake standards, or addictive fantasy. There's a better way, a path that leads to strength, clarity, and freedom. A life where your mind is focused, your heart is clear, and your spirit is no longer weighed down by guilt, temptation, or confusion. This is more than just a mindset shift. It's a spiritual reset. If anything in this video hit you deep, if you've ever felt that inner struggle between who you are and who lust is trying to turn you into, then I made something for you. It's a powerful resource that dives even deeper than this video. It's called 7 Biblical Secrets to Destroy Lust Before It Destroys You. These aren't surface-level tips. These are real, actionable principles, rooted in scripture, battle-tested, and soul-healing. If you're ready to break the cycle and finally take back control of your thoughts, emotions, and future, then I invite you to grab your copy. The link is right below in the video description, and also pinned in the top comment. This could be the moment everything changes. Don't let lust define your story. Let today be the day you rise above it, stronger, wiser, and fully free. Click the link, read the ebook, start your breakthrough, because your freedom is worth far more than any fleeting desire.